one. As it turns out, Joe Biden was responsible for cheap fakes. Bernie Sanders admits that Democrats are a threat to democracy. With the executive editor of the Daily Signal, Rob Bluey. 2, over 400,000 soldiers are buried at Arlington National Cemetery. But the stories of the unsung heroes of Arlington with Mike Sarraille. 3, you hated my top 5 sports movies of all time. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you set a reminder so that you will know to head on over to Facebook and YouTube and join the Willisha. If you're listening on terrestrial radio, subscribe at Apple or on Spotify. Tinfoil Pat, 2 days Dan, we're all back together. Tinfoil Pat got a little pep in his step, feeling a little better today. We heard it in the morning call, and it turns out this too shall pass. The kidney stone has passed.
Congratulations,
Let's get an update.
Congratulations.
How did it go? You birthed the stone.
Yeah, it was pretty simple, pretty easy. Just the regular wee, you know.
Man, you make it sound easier than everyone else I've ever heard from.
Well, the process to get to that point was very difficult. It was hardly ate, hardly slept, but, you know.
Just working too hard, bro.
That was it.
It's those 13-hour days you're pulling. Got to start lighting it up on the old body there, tinfoil. So we looked at about a 48-hour process here to give birth to your kidney stone. And what you're saying is the most painful part was the trip from your kidney to your bladder?
Definitely.
You told us this morning it sounded.
It's still sore. It still feels like I did like 1,000
sit-ups.
Playing hurt. We love it. We love to see it.
But when it actually rattled around a jar, once it finally left your body, it's been relief?
Yeah, it's a lot better. Significantly better. Yeah, for sure.
Is it immediate? Like the
once it hit your bladder,
once
you're like, once you hit your bladder, you're good. You're much better.
Now, how big was young kidney stone?
It was not very large. It was like the size of a star on a silver dollar.
The size of a star on a silver dollar. Okay,
yeah, like very minuscule.
Like the point of a ballpoint pen?
Sure. Yeah, about that.
Yeah, okay. That sounds like that would be painful.
Did your wife tell you not to complain because of how many kids you guys have?
No. She knows.
She was sympathetic.
Yeah, she was sympathetic to the pain.
She's much better.
Did you
than
name
I am
finally?
as a person.
Did you name? You've got 9 children, and you
wild.
Did you name this kidney stone?
Not yet. I'm still considering names. I'm thinking Rocky out of,
That's good.
After the friend of the program.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I like it. Rocky, salty.
Dude.
I'm just trying to think, what's a good name for a kidney
Rocky
stone?
the kidney stone.
Drop
technically
into the comments.
Sounds like a boxer. Rocky the kidney stone.
Drop into the comments at Facebook or on YouTube and help us name Tinfoil Pat's kidney stone. All right, let's get to some of the biggest stories of the day now. Outside of kidney stones, it's story number 1. Rob Bluey is the president and executive editor of the Daily Signal, and he joins us now on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Rob?
Hey, Will, good to see you. I've never had experience with a kidney stone, so that was quite the conversation. I appreciate a little extra knowledge there.
Well, you're young. You certainly read young. I don't know how old you are, but I've managed to make it half a century without a kidney stone. I hope that I can keep that streak going. But it's, everybody says it's horrific. It's terrible. Second only to childbirth. Kidney stones are not one of the maladies that we have heard afflicted Joe Biden throughout his presidency, but the evidence is now mounting on exactly how far the cover-up went and who was involved in deceiving the American people about the infirmities of their president and attempting to get him reelected. There are those, Rob, who are now saying it was elder abuse, and it's not Rachel Campos Duffy. Rachel Campos Duffy made that argument on Fox and Friends for years and was branded a conspiracy theorist. But now we hear people from NPR, people showing up on Tara Palmieri's podcast using the term elder abuse when it comes to Dr. Jill Biden. And there's reports that Mike Donilon, one of his chief advisors, made $4 million working for Joe Biden and was one of the chief architects of this deception. What do you think as news continues to trickle out about Biden?
It is a massive cover-up. It's probably the biggest cover-up in U.S. presidential history. I mean, it far exceeds anything that Richard Nixon did during Watergate. And I think you're absolutely right. The blame here I put squarely on Jill Biden. I mean, she obviously must have known about this from being his wife, getting the medical reports that clearly what must have been happening. I mean, Will, I'm old enough now to get, I do my annual physical. They take the blood work. You get the prostate numbers. My father, is a survivor of prostate cancer. So I'm well aware of the situation here. And there's no doubt in my mind that they were taking these tests and we just didn't learn about them. So for all we know, Joe Biden could have had kidney stones, but I don't trust, the White House doctors that were working for him to disclose any of this information. And it's really incumbent, I think, on the part of the American people. And it's probably why you hear this current White House and Donald Trump stress the issue of transparency as much as they do, because I do think that there has been a trust gap that's developed between the American people and the person that's occupying the White House after 4 years of Joe Biden. And one last point, Will, I heard Jake Tapper tell Megyn Kelly that Jill Biden was obsessed with the questions that were being asked in the White House press briefing room. And it is no doubt in my mind that this is one of the reasons why she excluded the Daily Signal and 440 other outlets, because she didn't want to answer those tough questions. She didn't want Karine Jean-Pierre to answer those questions, or she didn't even want to hear those questions being asked.
I'm glad to hear you're getting a regular physical, and I'm glad we haven't seen anything show up in form of kidney stones for you, Rob Bluey. David Lissauer on YouTube says, how about naming Tinfoil Pat's kidney stone Kid Rock? It's a good name for a kidney stone. Kid Rock. I like that. I don't go to the doctor, Rob. I've got to go to the doctor. I'm too old to not have a doctor. I should be getting all these tests. I'd like to think by the time I reach the age of 80, or that were I president of the United States, I'd have easier access. The whole thing confounds me. Like, who's going to be my doctor? Like, I don't have one that I can just call. I don't even know where to start, to be honest. And it's not smart. I got to get to a doctor, but it's inconceivable. It's inconceivable that they weren't doing PSA tests on Joe Biden, which is part of the cover-up. And all of this cover-up, and the cancer is only the latest, is something that is not unreasonable to say is an actual threat to our democracy. And as there's so many things in our life right now, we've learned the power of projection. That is the line that was projected on Donald Trump, that he represents a threat to our democracy. Well, Senator Bernie Sanders, was on a podcast with comedian Andrew Schultz, and they described the way it works with Democrats and basically got him to admit they are a threat to democracy. Watch.
Democrats, we felt that we didn't have a say on who could be president. We talk a lot about the Republicans being autocrats and oligarchs and taking over democracy, but from the Democrat perspective, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, I felt like the Democratic Party completely removed the democratic process from its constituents. And I think they need to have some accountability of that.
No argument here.
Could we not also say, if ostensibly there hasn't been a fair primary for the Democrats since 2008, are they not also a threat to democracy? Yes. We often hear.
Fair enough. That is, yeah, I'm not going to argue with that point.
Incredible. And obvious. That's where we live today, where everything is incredible and at the same time obvious, Rob.
Yeah, they are obsessed with power and retaining power. They felt that handpicking Hillary Clinton in 2016 and obviously preventing Joe Biden from running for for office in that year, even despite the fact that he was the vice president, would be their best chance to win. Remember what they did to Bernie Sanders in 2020. They felt that Joe Biden would be the better candidate, so James Clyburn and everybody in South Carolina rallied to the cause and installed Biden, and then Biden ran this basement campaign where basically he didn't have the rigors of what you would normally do in a presidential campaign. And I think it's exactly what was being said there. They haven't had a fair process in terms of picking a presidential nominee, and I think they're probably scared to go through that process. So it'll be very interesting to see what transpires in this next go-round in 2028. And all of those people who aspire to be the next Democrat nominee who served in Joe Biden's cabinet, how can we trust them? I mean, they spent 4 years lying to us about his health conditions. They didn't do anything to invoke the 25th Amendment and have him step down from office. And so how can the American people put their trust in any one of them? I think it probably has to be somebody who's coming from the outside and not connected to this Obama and Biden legacy.
Speaking of what happens in 2028, you looking forward like that? I did want to share with you this thought. This is Mark Halperin, political analyst, talking about the future for Republicans.
Yeah, you know, when he was back in the Florida legislature, he was tagged as someone destined for, you know, a national profile, and his presidential campaign disappointed his supporters. But he is just one of the stars of this administration. Even if you don't agree with his policies, his knowledge of policy, his knowledge, his rhetoric, his confidence, and his winning over MAGA. He went a rough spell with MAGA over immigration, and now he is one of the heroes of the movement. And I said earlier today, I'll say it again, I really do think J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio could end up being a preordained ticket in 2028, unlike we've ever seen before.
He's talking of Senator, now Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and everyone is talking about his level up, basically, recently, and the way he's handled a lot of the hearings before Senate committees, most recently dealing with Senator Tim Kaine. And he's right. Like, Marco Rubio is an early star of Donald Trump's administration, and he's saying that Vance Rubio preordained 2028.
It's certainly possible. I mean, there are any number of people on the farm team, if you will, who potentially could step into that role of vice president. I think Marco Rubio certainly is at the top of the list based on his early performance at the State Department. He's clearly looking forward to these fights on Capitol Hill with Democrats. You saw that over the course of the couple days this week. He does a great job when he's in an adversarial setting, in a media interview. He holds his own and he comes well prepared for those fights. But I think the most important thing, Marco Rubio has been one of the most principled conservatives dating back to the time he was first elected to the U.S. Senate. And so, he came in with that class of leaders, like a Rand Paul and a Mike Lee and others who really were inspired by the Tea Party movement in the early 2010s. And so I give him high marks based on what he's done so far, Will. And I'd certainly be supportive of seeing him stay in public life for years to come.
It's kind of interesting you bring up how long he's been, as you mentioned, a conservative. I do wonder where we sit today, Rob, and I'm curious what you guys think at the Daily Signal. Last night, the House passed a $3.8 trillion spending and tax cut bill. It does have several measures in there with relief for the middle class, like an expanded child tax care credit, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, extension of the Trump tax cuts from his first administration. But the spending reductions are something that keep a lot of people really skeptical. They're not massive. It's not big spending cuts. They're going to tout them. And as many have pointed out, they're backloaded. They're like the back end of a 10-year thing here. And do we ever even get to these spending cuts? And set aside, honestly, set aside partisanship and set aside ideology for a minute. I'm interested in what the bond markets are saying today, and like the 30-year Treasury is up above 5% right now. And the 10-year Treasury is up at 4.6%. That's pretty scary stuff. And the reason it's scary, let's just say why that's scary. It's not just like, bankers are worried. No. Well, we have to refinance government debt on an ongoing basis. And if we have to refinance trillions in government debt at higher interest rates, we are paying a ton of our federal budget towards the interest on our debt. And this is bad news if bond markets are bearish on the future of our ability to handle our debt and deficit. And so I wonder where you guys right now are on this at the Daily Signal. It still has to go to the Senate. I don't have I wouldn't stake a lot of hope that the Senate's going to find deficit reduction the House couldn't agree upon. But I'm curious what you guys think at the Signal.
Yeah, there's clearly some good things that are in the bill. You mentioned some of them. So, I mean, I think we should applaud Speaker Johnson and the House and certainly President Trump for helping to get the bill across the finish line. And when many people had doubts about whether that would happen before Memorial Day. But, Will, I do share your concern. I worry that the bill could get worse in the Senate rather than better. And specifically on the point you brought up about deficit reduction and bringing down this huge national debt that's staring us in the face. I mean, we have to make greater strides in doing this. You can sense the frustration coming out of Elon Musk this week that Congress isn't going to follow through and codify a lot of the actions that he took in the first 100 days when it came to reducing government waste and some of the spending that has just been abused for so many years.
So
that's
pretty shocking, Rob. Like, why would they not take up those cuts legislatively? And I do wonder, is it reluctance or is it strategy? Like, will this be something they can revisit after they pass a government spending bill? They can do it through rescission. So rescission is the White House asks for the Senate to look at cutting spending on specific things, and they have some power to do that. I don't know if they have the power after the budget's passed, but I'm a little shocked they're so uninterested in codifying DOGE.
I agree. I don't fully understand why. It seems like a lot of these things have been. I mean, Elon Musk has been litigating the case and took a lot of a big hit to his own personal reputation as a result of this. So he's essentially done the hard work. Now it's just Congress following through and making sure that the cuts are made. But it's one of those things where you have Republicans oftentimes go to Congress, they make these promises, and then they just fail to follow through on them. It's been a frustration now going back to the George W. Bush era. I mean, Bush entered office in 2001 with a balanced budget. And then, of course, we had the tragedy of 9/11. But ever since then, we have not been able to get this out of control spending back to a level where we can have a balanced budget in this country. And it's really frustrating for those of us who are conservatives and want to see limited government in this country. And so not only should Congress codify the DOGE cuts, but what I'm hoping you'll see when it comes back from the Senate to the House for consideration is this giveaway on the SALT deductions, the state and local tax deductions, which a handful of members insisted in the House in order for them to have a yes vote. And then there are provisions in there related to the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed under Joe Biden that I think could be stronger, and you could reduce some of the spending there. So there's still some work that the Senate could do, and I'm hopeful that people like Ron Johnson and Mike Lee will stand firm and hold out and make sure that they're hearing the point that conservatives have been rallying around for so long.
One more point before we close the chapter on projection. So for months, we heard that videos of Joe Biden stumbling and bumbling around were deep fakes or cheap fakes. And once again, we have evidence that when someone accuses you of some sin, they are most likely committing that sin. Now there's reports out that the Biden administration was slow motion videoing Joe Biden so that it could be sped up to look like he was walking faster. In short, they were creating cheap fakes.
Yeah. Not only that, but they were apparently shooting at so many different angles and just doing so many different takes because Biden couldn't complete a sentence that they had to patch these things together in a way that made it look authentic. But now we know the truth. Now we know not only were these videos that we were seeing the campaign and the White House put out exactly what you described, Will, the cheap fakes, but also there was apparently so much footage left on the cutting room floor simply because even the talented video producers that were there couldn't make use of it. And so this just speaks how bad things were at the White House. We had no idea. Joe Biden would come out and do these appearances like the State of the Union, and we'd all of a sudden, get these glowing reports from the news media that, he's got his game back, and, look at how much enthusiasm he has. But really, day to day, he was not in any condition to be running this country.
Remarkable event yesterday in the Oval Office, about the same time we were here on the Will Cain Show. I want to walk you through a little bit what happened as the president of South Africa visited President Trump. President Trump said, "Turn the lights down. I want to ask you about stuff that's happening in South Africa."
Turn the lights down. Turn the lights down. And just put this on. It's right behind you. Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not?
All right, that is the South African president being forced to watch videos of political members in South Africa calling for the death, the murder, the killing of white Afrikaners. President Trump has welcomed in 59 farmers, white Afrikaner farmers from South Africa, amidst what he says is genocide. Now, whether or not it amounts to a genocide at this point, it is murder. There are South African farmers who are being kicked off their land confiscation, little to zero compensation, no employment opportunities, and yes, in many, many cases, murder. They dismiss it as criminality. Now, what happened in the White House, it's like a talking point went out, and we've seen it happen before, Rob. We've seen it happen, and it happened on what happened yesterday with what happened in the Oval Office.
To the dramatic scene in the Oval Office today, the tense confrontation, President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
Up next, another Oval Office meltdown, President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
President Trump is being accused of conducting something of a diplomatic ambush of South Africa's president in the Oval Office.
To be with you, I'm Katie Tur. President Trump orchestrated another Oval Office ambush today.
Today, Donald Trump meeting with the president of South Africa and attempting to ambush and humiliate that leader.
Zelensky territory, where essentially he was
ambushed once again. They all have that talking point over this issue, and they are dismissing this issue as well. Weirdly, they're calling it racist for him to open up refugee status to white farmers.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to be said about this. First of all, one of the reasons why I love Donald Trump is he's so unpredictable, and you never know what you're going to get, even in these settings where, year after year, decade after decade, a foreign leader comes in and you expect them to sit there, have a cordial conversation. Not with Donald Trump, that's for sure. And by the way, how was this ambushed when it was a hostile question from a reporter that sparked the conversation to begin with? And remember, it was the South Africa president who interjected and didn't even let Trump answer the question. He said, I will answer this question for President Trump. And it was only after that exchange that Donald Trump said, lower the lights and turn on the video. And I think what Donald Trump is frustrated with, Will, is the fact that you've heard this criticism over the course of the past couple of weeks by allowing these refugees to the United States, despite the fact that they are actually individuals who really do need to escape the violence there in South Africa. I mean, these are precisely the type of people who the United States should be helping, not those who are fleeing for all sorts of other reasons, including criminals who have been let out of prisons in Latin American countries.
We covered it yesterday, including having an interview with one of the refugees from South Africa on the Will Cain Show. But as I mentioned, this has been twisted somehow into actually helping these white people is racist. Here's former New York Times columnist Charles Blow on CNN.
What do you think the phrase "kill the white farmers" means?
Yeah, that's a phrase that the ANC, that was a phrase that, was against the anti-apartheid movement. But the ANC, who's ruling the government, the president's government, has disavowed that phrase, has disavowed any songs, and there's no evidence that white people are being targeted. And the majority of Afrikaners do not want to leave.
They're not a part of the government, Scott. Right. You're taking a fringe movement and you're trying to make it a characteristic.
So it is the height of racism.
It is the height
of racism to say that white people have to be exempted from all violence in any society, and that is what is being said here. If we cannot say, there is no white genocide happening, there is no farm genocide happening, and the argument is some white people have been killed, even though 27,000 murders happened in that country. What are we saying? If anybody of one racial group is murdered, then that constitutes a refugee status for that particular group?
So he has said it's the height of racism to suggest that white people can't be subjected to violence. And then, by the way, I don't think anybody's saying that. These are racially targeted. It's racially targeted confiscations. It's racially targeted laws, which are on the books in South Africa, and it's racially targeted killings. And to suggest it's racism then to extend refugee status just shows not the height of racism, but the height of insanity there at CNN.
It absolutely is. And if you look at the facts of what's going on there, and clearly Charles Blow has not or wants to frame this in a way that is favorable to his personal opinion. I mean, you have farmers who are afraid to leave their property because they feel that if they do abandon it, or in some cases just depart for a trip, that it could be confiscated or taken away. Or they've had to spend money to secure with electric fences and bars on windows and all sorts of things just to stay safe in a country where they were born. And so I think that clearly what Donald Trump was trying to do in this exchange, and what you saw play out at the White House yesterday, was to illustrate, despite the fact that you have so many in the news media, the legacy news media, who want to deny this happening, that there needs to be a substantial conversation about the truth of what's going on in that country. And so I was glad to see that he did that. I don't particularly like the reaction that you're seeing in terms of how they're framing it in terms of an ambush, but I can't say I'm particularly surprised after what happened with Zelensky. But I think that for those people who are interested in watching the full video and seeing it with their own eyes, they will have a different impression than how it's being summed up by some of these news stations.
He is the president and executive editor, and make sure you check him out at the Daily Signal. Rob Bluey, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Hey, thanks, Will. And I'll get a jump in. I grew up near Cooperstown, New York. So my favorite sports movie of all time is Major League. And so a little wild thing there for you.
There we go. It's a great movie. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thanks.
Southern Shell says on YouTube, kidney stones have been the worst pain I've ever had. It was worse than natural labor and delivery in any of the 27 surgeries I've ever had. My son had a kidney stone when he was only 7 years old. I hope I can only ever trust you on that. Yeah, you didn't like my top 5 sports movies, and I didn't include Major League, which is absolutely great. So let's get into what you hated about my list, plus the 400,000 unsung heroes at Arlington National Cemetery. Coming up on The Will Cain Show. How dare I leave off Hoosiers, your hatred of my top 5 sports movies. Coming up on The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com. The Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. If you want to listen, hit subscribe at Apple or on Spotify. There are over 400,000 soldiers buried, former military, our nation's heroes, buried at Arlington National Cemetery. But who are they? There's a new Fox Nation special, The Unsung of Arlington. It's hosted by Mike Sarraille. He is a Force Recon, Scout Sniper, Marine, a retired U.S. Navy SEAL, and he hosts The Unsung of Arlington on Fox Nation. He's with us here now. What's up, Mike?
Will, what's going on?
Good to see you. How'd you get roped into Fox Nation, Mike? How'd you get, I know how you would be interested in this story, but what made you want to tell the story of the Unsung of Arlington?
Well, first off, humbled to be invited to be a small part of this and to be part of the Fox family for this. Ultimately, I've got Gavin Hayden to blame, but you're right. The purpose behind this is easy. The second, Gavin and the team told me about it, the answer was I'm in. Whatever part I can play, whether that's sleeping the floors of the crew filming it or hosting, to tell these stories, to tell the stories of sacrifice to keep their legacies alive. That's what it's about.
That's awesome. Gavin is a good friend. He used to work and run Fox and Friends. He's now one of the executives in charge of Fox Nation. And I think this is fascinating. Decided to focus in. And I want to focus in with you as you've got a couple episodes here. And they include profiles of people we've heard of, like Medgar Evers or John Glenn. But what I'm interested in is how it fulfills the title, The Unsung of Arlington. There's 400,000, lost heroes there in that cemetery. And so I want to see if you just share with us some stories of people that we have not heard of, who are unsung. In fact, why don't we talk a little bit about Chaplain Charles Pierce?
Chaplain Charles Pierce has definitely left a mark on the military. So, a pioneer in his right. He basically founded the grave, registration service, which allows families to grieve with closure. He is the godfather of the dog tags. And having been a prior Marine, I still have my dog tags from the Marine Corps. I didn't take the ones from the Navy. I kept those throughout my combat tours. But what Charles Pierce teaches us is that, even in the chaos of war, dignity matters. Closure matters. Bringing home both our living and our dead matters. And personally, where this strikes me is, I was part of a squadron That was, a good amount of our guys were lost on a helicopter called Extortion 17. Those remains were brought home, and some of the remains couldn't be identified. There's a tombstone in Arlington, and on it says, "Here lie the men of Extortion 17, all their remains buried together." And that's in thanks to Chaplain Charles Pierce. And at the end of the day, he embodies Memorial Day, which we're here to celebrate. We're here to remember. He remembers the faces, the stories, and the humanity behind each of the individuals who sacrificed their lives for this nation.
Yeah. Extortion 17, one of the darkest days in the history of the Navy SEALs, the history of the U.S. Navy SEALs. What did we do, Mike? I hope I don't push you beyond the history of the story that you tell, but when did this come along? Like the dog tag. He's the father of the modern dog tag. And I can only imagine what it was like before that. I mean, I don't know, Civil War, when we existed in a pre-dog tag warfare, but bodies littering a battlefield, some unrecognizable, people not knowing who they'd lost or where they lost them.
No, you're actually correct. So it was a Civil War, and if I'm correct in my military history, and I know you're a student in military history, I believe it's the cemetery at Vicksburg. There's 13,000 soldiers from what I can remember who have unmarked graves because we couldn't identify them. And so at some point, the military realized and tasked Chaplain Charles Pierce with coming up with this grave, service system in order to identify those remains and start the process. Really, where it took root was in the Philippines. He was in the wars against the Filipino independence, and then eventually World War I. He came back into service to handle the remains and identification of soldiers during World War I, and it's come to stay.
All right, episode 1 of the Unsung of Arlington is about a man named Philip Kearny. Tell us about Philip Kearny.
So this is what we refer to as a soldier's general. He is a one-armed general who is known just as being a larger-than-life character on the battlefield. His nickname, because he served under Napoleon, was Kearny the Magnificent. And, as the story goes, this guy used to ride into battle one arm. So in the one hand, he had a sword, and he had the reins of the horse in his mouth. He motivated and inspired the men. He was well known and quite frankly, one of the more senior generals for the North during the Civil War. But what's interesting about Kearny is he is the godfather, again, another pioneer for the unit patches that the Army wears today. So any Army soldier, any Air Force airman owes credit and thanks to Kearny for developing that system. And that system is still used today for identification on the battlefield so that during chaos, we can identify where our troops are in contrast to the enemy. And phenomenal story. And from everything I've read about Kearny and everything I've learned from the historians at Arlington, he would be considered one of the great leaders, even today, within military history.
So he was a Civil War major general for the North, but he fought with Napoleon. He's an American? What? Yes. I didn't even think about Americans going over there to fight with Napoleon.
So the military often does, if you want to call them exchange programs, like we sent pre-World War II, we sent American officers and American enlisted men to go serve with the Chinese resistance when the Japanese were occupying China. He was a similar program during his day and age during the Italian Wars. Went and served under Napoleon. He had 2 arms then within their cavalry to learn their tactics and their techniques, bring that back to the U.S. military at his time.
Wow, fascinating. And then Jane Delano, is somebody you focus on in episode 5, and this is on the nursing side of the military.
Again, each of these individuals were pioneers, and you said it best. We all know Medgar Evers. And a lot of people recognize him as a social justice warrior. He was a veteran as well, and he should be recognized as both. Same with John Glenn. We see him as an astronaut. Well, he was a combat seasoned Marine well before that, 149 missions in World War II in Korea. But Jane Delano, and having been wounded on the battlefield, this one really resonated to me. She was the godmother of the nurse corps that we know today. She mobilized 20,000 angels, of which 300 perished in World War I. And she brought together the Army Nurses Corps, the Red Cross, and ANA and her impact is even felt in national disaster response to this day. So having been wounded and having a nurse stand by my side, hold my hand, knowing that I had just lost a teammate and console me, also provided me morphine, and that was much appreciated. I had to reflect back, and she's to thanks. I owe her a debt of gratitude for the system and the impact she had on modern military medicine.
What's really cool about the idea behind this series is when you look at Arlington National Cemetery, or for that matter, if you've ever been to Normandy, to the American Cemetery, and you see all of those graves and their uniform, not unlike the uniform you wear when you're serving in the United States military. The power is in the unity. The power is in the sameness. The power is in the shot from afar, and you see all those crosses. You see all those white markers in the ground, and you see the collective sacrifice, and that's powerful. But what gets a little lost, the price you pay in that broad scope is the narrow view of the actual human beings, the individuals that lie underneath those markers. And what's really cool is you guys are diving in to see who those individuals are, and they are unsung.
Will, you could not have said that more beautifully. Regardless of rank, regardless of race, those tombstones are uniform, either bearing crosses of crosses or stars of David, as Reagan said. It is a symbolic and almost hallowed ground. That is a reminder to all of us. And at the end of the day, Memorial Day is not a celebration. It's a day of remembrance. And I think there's a disconnect with society, and we've come to underappreciate the true meaning of Memorial Day, when we should be sitting in silence. Yes, you can be surrounded by friends, you can be at the beach, but we need to remember that these people demonstrated selfless valor and believed in something bigger than themselves, to include us in the potential of what we can become. But they gave their tomorrow for our today. And I think in a way, and again, this is going to piss some people off, we've become too comfortable. And sacrifice is uncomfortable. And it's some feel shame and guilt to feel that discomfort of knowing somebody else sacrificed for them, but that's good, because that discomfort can turn into gratitude. And hopefully gratitude turns into action, that each of us, given their sacrifice, need to live in their honor and make this a better place, this nation, collectively.
I want to follow up with you in just a moment about Memorial Day. We're 4 days away from that holiday, from that day, as you mentioned, of reflection, of remembrance. But another question on Arlington, Mike, that I don't know if you know the answer to, but it's just a curiosity. There's 400,000 buried at Arlington. That I would imagine is not the easiest honor or final resting place to accomplish for any military member. How does that work? There's limited space, obviously. How does one get buried at Arlington?
You know what, Will? I don't know the exact process. Yes, I think if you're killed in action, if the family wishes you to be buried at Arlington, there's space. For those that served and then perish as a civilian, the rest of us, I think there is a request process. I will say this. You would think room is running out. And it was amazing during this process of speaking to the historians at Arlington. They are making leaps and bounds to secure more space adjacent to Arlington to be prepared to honor the fallen in their wishes, or the living their wishes to be buried at Arlington. But if you've not been, and you mentioned Normandy, I still have not been to Normandy, and that's a little bit of an embarrassment to say that. Go to Arlington. You will feel the weight the second you step onto those grounds. And Will, I had to block this out. While we're filming in Arlington, you could hear taps playing probably no less than 10 times that day of funerals that were going on. And that just, that on top of hearing the stories of these amazing 5 individuals, that weight fell on me when I got back to my hotel room at the end of the day. And I just had to sit in a little bit of darkness and silence to truly reflect on what had just happened, and the fact that I got to be a small part of telling these stories.
I do want to ask a personal curiosity from you're not a small part, maybe in telling these stories, you're not a small part of the commitment you've given and the sacrifice you've given to the United States of America. I'm always fascinated by this. From Force Recon to the United States Navy SEALs, not a path that you often hear. Maybe it's more common than I'm familiar with, but how did you make that leap?
Well, as my mom says, I never take the easy path, and maybe I should start at the age of 47 with one hip replacement. And in one correction, I was not Force Recon. I was Recon.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. So I love the Marine Corps. It laid the foundation for me to be successful. I'm once a Marine, always a Marine. And I did their version of special operations to include the Scout Sniper community. But when the war kicked off, I made a decision because we were not the Marine Corps and Recon were not part of SOCOM at the time. And so we were missing out on missions, in contrast to the Green Berets or the Navy SEALs. And it was just a decision of, hey, if I'm going to do this, I want to be at the tip of the spear. And, I had to go through hell again. I'd gone through a selection process to become a Recon Marine. And it was my path. And I was happy to contribute in my way to the military, which is no different than the people who contribute in logistics, who fly our aircraft, intelligence, artillery. Everyone plays their part. And at the end of the day, you're just another soldier in a long green line of history that dates back to the Civil War. And the best part of it, Will, and you know this, bro, I was part of a very special team, and that's the U.S. military. And you're part of a tribe. And when people talk about service and some have a negative perception of the military, I feel so bad for them because they never got to experience what true brotherhood and sisterhood feels like.
Oh, I've always said I have two regrets in life. One, that I didn't have more children, and two, that I didn't serve in the military. That you only serve to enhance that second part of true brotherhood and sisterhood. I was going to ask you something about that. Now Marines are part of SOCOM, right?
They are.
Now, yeah.
Literally.
We're the Marine Raiders.
Literally 1 year after I went through butts. And maybe I should have held on a little more. And they're doing great. MARSOC is a valued part of the SOCOM community. They're there to stay. But you know what's overlooked is the amount of support personnel within special operations. Dude, they laid the stage for us to be successful. Without them, we get to do the cool, sexy, yes, dangerous stuff, but we are not successful without the overwhelming number of support personnel we have within that community.
All right, last question, because we are, as we mentioned, 4 days away from Memorial Day, and you did mention as well the way we should think about and the way we should behave on Memorial Day. I don't want to push you into an uncomfortable place, but I also think it's good for people listening at home. It's always important, I think you've led us down this path of personalizing it. That's part of what you guys do with the Unsung of Arlington. Personalize the sacrifice. Who do you remember, Mike, on Memorial Day?
Well, I mentioned a lot of brothers on Extortion 17, a lot of other brothers lost in combat, but the story that comes to mind is Michael Mansour, MA2 Michael Mansour. We knew him as Mikey, and he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. He jumped on a grenade 3 feet from me, as well as another SEAL, to save our lives. And there's a lot of guilt and shame there. And I think with time, I'll see the brighter side of it. And I think of his family and the fact that, I still reflect and regret some of the decisions I made and didn't make on that day. But his sacrifice, which he didn't hesitate to save me and another one of his brothers in arms, it was just like nothing I've ever seen. And, the Gold Star families, you talk about Memorial Day. We as a society and how we conduct ourselves on this day either honors their sacrifices or makes them feel neglected. And to all the Gold Star families, I know this day is probably harder than the rest, but we are with you. And we will continue to tell their stories to keep their legacies alive.
Well, man, thank you for sharing that story, however hard it might be to always relive it. And I hate to hear you might have guilt or shame, and there are details you're not sharing or you don't want to share, and we don't need to know. But I hate that for you. Your friend did something heroic, and that's what that story is. And we should all do our part in trying to remember that as you share that story with us, which I truly, really appreciate. And I appreciate the Unsung of Arlington. It's some great way for us to at least spend some time as we approach or on Memorial Day to remember those people like Mike points out to us. So make sure you check it out at Fox Nation. Mike, thanks for spending time with us here today.
Hey, Will, thanks for having me.
You bet, man. All right, we'll see you around. All right, go ahead and check that out. The Unsung of Arlington, hosted by Mike Sarraille. It's at foxnation.com. All right, when we come back, you guys had a lot of feedback, not a lot of support, a fair amount of hate for my top 5 sports movies. Next on The Will Cain Show. I got your texts. I got them from my friends. How dare you? You have no credibility. How dare you leave off Hoosiers? It's The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Hey, hit subscribe at Apple or Spotify and hang out with us every day here. And leave a comment. And like those that don't like my list, whether you like it or not, you're now a member of the Willisha. So my top 5 sports movies were Ford vs. Ferrari, Miracle, help me out, two-a-days, Tin Cup,
Caddyshack, and The Fighter.
And The Fighter. All right. It's a great list. Talking about. It's a great list.
I have a theory after this, I'll tell you, but
okay.
You just like being opposition.
No, I don't.
You don't like going with the flow.
Yeah, I didn't want to put out a list that was Hoosiers, The Natural, and Major League, and just like everybody else.
You just want to be different.
That might have some truth to it.
Yeah.
That might have some truth. But no, I'm not just being contrarian for contrarian's sake. I'll tell you why. But first, you have combed through the internet. You have combed through the comments, and you have come up with comments and like a generated list of the audience's top 5 movies.
Yeah, so I compiled all the comments from all our social media and put them into AI and put it together and came up with the top 5 suggested sports movies fan list. Would you like to hear it?
Okay, I would.
Number 5 is Major League, is in the top 5, which I feel like that's necessary. Number 4.
It's a great movie.
Yep.
Go ahead. I would watch it again.
Number 4, another baseball movie, which we mentioned yesterday, Bull Durham, Kevin Costner.
Almost made my list. Let me just tell you something really quickly. I'm not being contrarian. My barometer often is, would I watch it again tonight? If somebody said, there's no Dallas Stars Western Conference Finals game, and
no Knicks.
I didn't want to watch Temptation Island, which I might have watched an episode of Temptation Island.
Hey, me too.
On Netflix.
So have I.
Really, 2 days?
Yes.
We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah.
And somebody said, do you want to watch Major League tonight? I'd be like, yeah. But do you know what, honestly? If they said, do you want to watch The Natural? I'm like, man, I don't know.
It's intense.
It's got to be something else. And it doesn't mean it's not a good movie. But rewatchability is really key to my list. And both Bull Durham and Major League have rewatchability.
Yeah, sorry, but I'm not putting on The Fighter and getting really depressed at night.
It's not depressing. Christian Bale is funny.
Dude, it's literally
he's a funny crack addict.
He's a funny okay. Moving on with this list. I mean, this list is very chalk. I'll put it, if there was a chalk sports movies list, it's this. Number 3 is Rocky from the fans.
No. That's a have to. Listen to me. I know what you folks are doing in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
That's so chalk. There's a good chance that a lot of people haven't even seen it. Okay. Hey, okay, do this right now. We got Tinfoil Pat, got two-a-days. We got young Tony sitting in here today. Raise your hand if you have literally ever seen Rocky. Raise your hand. One. Okay.
I've seen it like
Tony,
150 times. Yeah.
No, not part of the Rocky, not any Rocky movie. Rocky 1.
Yes.
Now, here's my second question. Have you seen Rocky 1 twice?
I've probably seen it more than 50 times.
Get out of here.
I swear to God.
Rocky is so slow. It's barely a boxing movie. Rocky is a art piece, okay? It doesn't get until you go to Rocky 2. Then it starts going, okay, this is better. This is more watchable. You get to Rocky 3.
You're right.
And the ones that are, like, nobody likes Rocky 3.
Right.
The critics don't like it. It's probably the best Rocky.
Rocky 4.
Except for Rocky 4. Rocky 4 is right. And that's another one. People are like, oh, it's not one of the better. Rocky 1 and 2 get all the glory. And the truth is, those were Oscar movies. And they're not that rewatchable. And if you watched it right now, I will guarantee you're going to get bored in Rocky 1. Guarantee you.
Absolutely.
That's just somebody giving an answer they're supposed to give.
I think you're right. I think people forget about Rocky 1. I think when they think of Rocky, they think of Rocky 2 and up. You're absolutely right.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
I saw Rocky for the first time in the last 5 years, and the pacing was very, very slow. Like he's just walking through Philadelphia, singing. Singing by a fire barrel.
Don't say any bad words about Rocky in Philadelphia. That he's like a real person to them there. So it's
Everybody loves Rocky. Everybody loves Rocky, and we love the franchise. What I'm telling you is Rocky 1 does not belong on the top 5 list unless you are telling people you like things that win Oscars and it was art. But you don't really love watching Rocky.
All right. Coming in at number 2 is a movie that was just mentioned, Hoosiers.
Okay, so I have said to people that Hoosiers has fallen in my mind into a little bit of that Rocky world. Like, it feels old, and I wonder, does it hold up? Is it actually as good as everybody throws rose petals at its feet? But a lot of people I trust say, no, it holds up. And I haven't seen Hoosiers in a long, long time. I haven't rewatched it. I owe it to rewatch Hoosiers and just see, does it hold up?
The only thing that...
If you said... Will, would you rather watch Major League or Hoosiers tonight? I would say Major League because I know what I'm going to get. It's going to be fun. It's going to be funny. And Hoosiers doesn't sound like that. But I'm on this one as opposed to Rocky, I'll swallow some humility and be like, I could be wrong. I've just forgotten how good Hoosiers is.
But the thing that doesn't hold up in Hoosiers is how they play basketball. They dribble around like Bob Cousy, like, "Meh, see, they're running up the court, see, meh." When they're short,
they don't carry.
Yeah, no, of course.
They don't carry the ball. They literally dribble it.
All right, coming in at number 1, this movie I've actually watched and then watched it again right after I've just watched it. That's how good I think this movie is. Coming in at number 1, back to back, Field of Dreams. Number 1 from the fans.
All right, here, this is another one. I like Field of Dreams, okay? But Field of Dreams, I like it. But it's so sentimental in everyone's minds that they overhype the actual movie. Do you see what I mean? Like, people, they've got their own father-son story as part of it. I have been to the actual Field of Dreams twice. I've been there with Fox, and it's awesome. I've walked the cornfields. I've listened to the music playing on the overhead speakers. It's all awesome. But, if you said to me tonight, we're going to watch the Kevin Costner movies, baseball, in order, I would probably go Bull Durham. Okay, let's do Bull Durham first. That's what I'd say. Let's do Bull Durham. And then I would say For Love of the Game. And then I would say Field of Dreams. Now, I can't sit here and tell you that it's not a better movie. Maybe it is, but it's like with Field of Dreams, I'm signing up for the emotional. You know what I mean? It's like I'm signing up to be I don't want to say emotionally manipulated. I don't know. I'm signing up for emotion that I don't want. I don't want sentimentality right now. I want fun. That's mostly what I want in a sports movie. I don't want the sentimentality that often.
So you're saying I just like Field of Dreams because I have issues with my own father? Is that it? Is that what you're saying?
Daddy
Dr.
issues?
Will? Yeah,
That's exactly what he's saying.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, got it.
What was that face you were making, Tinfoil?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't even know. I'm making faces.
You made a big.
I don't want to get involved
usually...
in a whole thing again like last week. I don't even know.
People usually accuse you of being asleep on the screen, and you made a big eye-opening face, and you can't even remember why.
I don't even know why.
But so that's why I'm not trying to be contrarian. That's why I didn't do a lot of everybody's favorites.
Yeah.
No, not because it's chalk, but because they always go towards these movies that they've been on the Mount Rushmore for 40 years, 30 years, and you're like, but honestly, would you watch it tonight? If you and 3 buddies were sitting around and you said, let's have some whiskey and watch a sports movie, would you go, yeah, let's put on Field of Dreams? I don't think you would. And I know you wouldn't put on Rocky.
Heck no. All right, so you want to get into some criticism of you from the audience?
Yeah.
All right, so this one actually is good. from Brian Tyree. Horrible list. No Hoosiers, Field of Dreams, or Moneyball. Moneyball is more rewatchable than anything on your list. What about Raging Bull? You have recency bias, Will.
I must, because the only one I cared about that he said was Moneyball.
Moneyball's
Like,
great. I would watch
yes.
that right now.
Moneyball's great. I would watch Moneyball too.
Yeah.
That, if somebody said, look, let's put on Moneyball, I would do it. But Raging Bull, come on. You're not.
No.
It's like you're prestige hunting. Go ahead.
Yes. All right, this is from Jason Taylor. I like Will Cain, but he sucks when it comes to movies.
Okay, well, thanks, Jason.
Matt Levinus, terrible list. Hoosiers. Connie Deere, ridiculous list, Will, with a lot of exclamation points. Will, I highly respect you and some of your insights, but this list is a miss for me. You would be better suited breaking down these into individual sports movies. There are way too many great sports movies that you are neglecting.
Come on, think about my list. First of all, after the show yesterday, I had to go rewatch the final scene of Tin Cup again. It's incredible. And then when I don't know. I can do lines from Caddyshack and Tin Cup. I can't do a line from Rocky, you know?
Adrian.
I mean, that's what,
what's the matter with you?
You know, in Miracle, if I'm going to sign up for an emotional roller coaster with a predictable outcome, I want the USA beating the Soviets at the end. That's what I want. So give me Rocky 4, but Miracle's better than Rocky 4.
Someone pointed out, Caltech 61 said sad list, Will. They are all the same type of movie except for Miracle.
Are they?
All the ones you picked.
How? Ford vs. Ferrari, Caddyshack are the same type of movie?
That's false.
Yeah.
We got a lot of these sad list in the Trump voice. You left off Brian's song and Rudy.
See, I guess
I do think you're not giving Rudy enough credit.
You think so?
Rudy
I should maybe
is
go back and watch Rudy.
By far the best sports movie outside of All the Mighty Ducks.
You know what I think? I think here's my analysis of myself on this. I don't want a sports movie to be a vehicle to emotionally manipulate me outside the world of sports.
But that's what sports is.
Do you see what I mean? No, that's why I'm in on Miracle. Miracle is an emotional manipulation, but it's A, nonfiction, and B, it's about the actual sport, right? But Brian's song, I don't want to cry. I don't want to feel sad. I don't want those things.
I cry at all these.
And you know what? Field of Dreams makes me a little sad. And so maybe I have my daddy issues, but I don't want to feel sad. I don't like feeling sad.
Well,
and so all those movies I gave you, I feel something different when I watch them. That's my thing. I want to feel happy, exhilarated, or laugh. That's what I want in one of these. By the way, I don't always want that. I love shoot-'em-ups and bank robberies and all that thing. I like a thrill. Drama itself, if sports is a vehicle for drama outside the sport, and I give you The Fighter was a lot of that, I don't want to watch that over and over again. I just don't.
Patrick?
Suzanne in the comments had a really good suggestion. One I forgot completely, but it holds up really well every time I watch it. A League of Their Own. I'm not even into women's baseball. It's a really good movie.
There's no crying.
Very rewatchable. Very quotable.
You know what? It probably is. Do you know the modern day feminist women in sports thing retrospectively ruins A League of Their Own in a way? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't actually ruin the movie, but it ruins your perception. Like, do I want to watch it? I have such an aversion. This is my thing. I have aversions to movies that I see up there, and I realize this movie is going to manipulate me on some social justice issue. Do you know what I mean? And that's not what League of Their Own did. It wasn't that. But now, here we are 20 years later or whatever. I don't remember when it came out. And I have trouble thinking
35.
of it with, is it really 35 years?
Jeez.
Wow.
Early 90s.
I have trouble thinking of it outside of, Hollywood is so ruined. They ruined entertainment to force you to digest a message that I almost kind of imported that back on League of Their Own, and that's unfair. to League of Their Own.
One more baseball movie that was thrown around that I have to put in that's really, really good. I totally forgot about. Trouble with the Curve. Clint Eastwood. Fantastic movie.
I don't think I ever saw it.
Really?
I don't think I ever saw it.
You would like it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's right up your alley. Trouble with the Curve is a really good baseball movie. And it's about the game. It's about a scout, an older scout who's getting pushed out because of the new ways of baseball. It's fantastic.
Oh, wait. Is John Hamm in it?
Justin Timberlake.
I feel like I did see this movie. Now you say that it's about when you said it's about a scout. Now I remember that.
Yeah, John Goodman's in it. No John Hamm.
There's a couple of these baseball movies that blend together for me, like The Rookie, which everybody says is good, by the way.
Not bad.
And sort of like the baseball movie where the discovery, a guy well past his prime, or Trouble with the Curve is about a scout discovering a prospect, right? Something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially.
I think I've seen it. I just forgot it.
How can you?
Well, I stand by my picks. Yeah. And now you and the Willisha know why. And tell me my rationale is not solid. I want to rewatch it, and I don't want to be sad. I think that's pretty fair. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on the Will Cain Show. We'll be back again, same time, same place tomorrow. See you next time.